of, say, uniting IoT and real estate. And not such a good part of it is that real estate accounts for around 30% of global CO2 emissions. So the background of this is also that if you compare real estate to IT, basically, you could compare it to Windows 3.11. Typically in a building, the software you get is the one that was in the box. You're stuck with it until you basically refurbish or renovate the building. And this is, basically creating real estate, like we say, the very, very static assets. They don't evolve, they are as you designed them to be, and that's what you're stuck with, where that delivers something that what we say is outdated at delivery, where today's challenges really require something that is much more like an evolving tool. And in trying to explain what we do, we use the analogy of a smartphone where we say, why can't we build real estate with IoT more in the structure of, providing high quality hardware standardized throughout, and then equip that with an open operating system that automatically updates, is identical for all buildings that we do, that runs in the cloud, and that then allows, with applications, use cases, analytics, whatever on top, to make it much more custom and to build all these use cases. And this allows us to stop designing to user requirements. Now, some of my clients really get confused if I say this, because basically I'm saying, I like the conversation, but we're not building what you're asking. We're building something already anticipating that what you're asking today is going to be different tomorrow and in 3 years and what have you. And this works very well with this structure because, as Aurelien just explained, you have a massive program with lots of different stakeholders and different types of journeys and customers, what have you. So if you can make that in a flexible way that keeps evolving, you don't need to agree on which all of the use cases you actually want. You can just keep adding and removing. Now, that was the dream. This is actually, in any world, but for sure in real estate, not the easiest thing to achieve. So when we started working on this 8 years ago, but of course also heavily involved in the circle, we did manage to create this. So we build an infrastructure of IoT devices that are powered. We don't use batteries in real estate. That's a very dangerous business. We measure everything in the space, we can control everything, and we can localize. We can allow smartphones to localize themselves, so we can track assets. And then we can unlock all this to basically here the top layer. We have 54 different applications that use our software from third parties. And as much as this is a challenge to build from an IT perspective, the real challenge actually here in a project like this is that, a real estate project is for sure not an IT world. So, you're talking about the physical world of construction, and any one of you who has ever been on a construction site knows this is the pretty face. So up front here is, is really rough works, a different kind of industry, and a lot of people involved really don't know that a network cable has two ends. So, getting to this phase where I challenge you to look for our devices, because we are quite proud of how well they blend in with the design. We've managed to install more than 500 devices that generate every day more than 11 million data points. But at the end of the day, it is really about then building this and being able to keep updating and bring new features related to the environment, with governance, social, or just reducing costs. And that's where we have to connect back to the data. And as we like to say to our clients, there's some things we trust, but then others must bring data. And that's where we go back to Aurelien to show you the data.
Thank you, Wouter. So, as you can see, this is one of the dashboards that Big Read is basically providing Microsoft. And here you find some of temperature sensor. You can look at, which room is the hottest in this floor. Here I'm showing you the floor 10, which is the floor where at Microsoft we welcome partners and visitors. We can see that the boardroom is the hottest one. Interesting. Every time I go there, it's always overpacked. It's for 20 people. There is always 30 people. So maybe that's an issue of capacity, or there is really a heating or cooling issue in this room. Temperature is not the only one information we get from Big Read. We also get occupancy information and also noise level. And I actually like the noise level because the noise level really shows you a little bit of the life of the building. And you can see the very dark part, this is basically a corridor. And this corridor is really close to the conference rooms that we have at Microsoft, where we can welcome hundreds of people. So it really shows that close to these conference rooms, when people goes out and have a chat, a snack, and so on, this is really busy. So ideally, you don't want to have you don't want to sit close to that when there is a conference at Microsoft. The other, actually more interesting part of it is the square, kind of dark square in the middle there. That's the best place for any people working at Microsoft. This is the barista. This is where we go to have coffee, have an informal chat with customers, partners, and colleagues as well. And it's just very nice to see how Stencil is able to kind of grasp what's the different part of life of these buildings. Now, what can we do more? And as I explained at the beginning, the Zurich Airport has been able to build a platform where they send not only sensor data, but you can also get data from building management systems, from different kind of part of the building, from security doors, elevators, and so on. So how can we not only use the data from BigRead, but also match them with the other data that we get from from the building management system and energy consumption and so on. And just to kind of set a little bit the scene of what we are looking at as Microsoft as a tenant, but also using some of our technologies, is I look at kind of three personas, user-centric here, three personas that basically will leverage a bigger amount of data. One is the facility management. Basically, the facility management will be looking at how can I make sure that some of the meeting rooms that are set as occupied, but still empty, they are booked for meetings. Sometimes we have weekly or regular monthly meetings and they are booked and there is no one inside. So how do I make sure that those spaces are not lost? Because finding a meeting room currently in the Microsoft Office can be challenging, and it's kind of frustrating when you pass by and you see no one in the room. You don't really know if someone is going to show up and so on. And usually by the time you realize that the room is actually free, your meeting has already started and you cannot join. So how can you avoid that? The other one is around employees like me, where if I go to the office, usually it's to have focus time. I'm covering MES, I'm not especially focused too much on Switzerland, and if I go to the office, I want to be focused, I don't want to have any noise. So how can I leverage not only the sensors, but also understanding what's happening in the building to really find the best place to sit and have a full day kind of quiet of focus. And the last one is around sustainability. How someone in our sustainability team can really look at the building and improve the carbon footprint of it. So what we do is we use one of the tools available on Azure. It's actually one of the latest ones called Microsoft Fabric. And as you can see, this is a kind of platform for doing all kind of analytic workflows. We basically send all the data there. This is work in progress. We tried to get you a video, it didn't really work. So I'm kind of showing you marketing slides. I'm sorry for that. The goal is just to tell you a little bit what kind of tools we're using. Microsoft Fabric, putting all of the data there. The other interesting things is AI Copilot. You might have heard of that, is how we are kind of leveraging OpenAI technologies to really help us get better inside of the data. So I really want to move here because this is Power BI. And one way our facility managers are able to look into the data and get an understanding of it, it's basically how they're able to build those dashboards and not only get data from BigRead, but also get data from the building management systems, energy consumptions, and so on. So as well, another insight would be as well the Exchange online capabilities to know a little bit about the meetings that are booked. So with this kind of dashboard, they're really able to go and look at, okay, how many rooms are really being booked, how many rooms are really being utilized, and get a better summary to understand if there is specific rooms that every week are booked with no one showing up at any time. The next stage then will be to kind of build an automation with this kind of copilot and be able really to say, okay, if you've booked a meeting room and you haven't been there, and you book the same meeting room a week later, we send you a notification to say, hey, you've booked again the meeting room, you haven't been there the last week, please confirm that you will be there this week, otherwise we just remove the booking. It's kind of a soft way of handling some of the challenges we see in the meeting rooms. The next one